Creative and unique describe this game pretty well, but it's also got some glaring issues. Like me. I'm MTK, and today we are reviewing Codex Lost, an open-world spell-based Souls-like from the studio Freemana. Now, full disclosure, I was provided a review copy of this game, but what I'm about to go over is 100% my own opinion, and I was not compensated for it at all. And I think that will be pretty apparent as I walk through my thoughts. So Codex Lost, I've been excited for ever since I found out about it months ago, and I've covered it multiple times on my Soulsborne news series. It looked like it was going to add a new spin to the genre and step outside of the kind of same old that so often plagues Souls-like games. And I would say it succeeded in that. The problem, unfortunately, is at the core of the game itself. So let me try to explain. Let's start with the visuals. So look, this is an indie game from a small studio, so graphically you're gonna get what you'd expect. However, the creativity is to be admired in my opinion. The art design and style are both really cool. They might be a little rough around the edges, but that doesn't take away from the hard work and thought that went into creating this style of world. And if we're being honest, the actual look, as far as graphical fidelity goes, really just comes down to budget anyway. So I would say that the art design and visuals are pretty decent in my opinion. The sound design is also decent, but the music is kind of bland, I will say that. It's kind of forgettable, and if I'm being honest, during my playthrough, I didn't really even notice that the music was playing, so I think that they kind of mailed it in on the music side of things. However, the voice acting is actually pretty good though, and I'll talk about that more a little bit later. But let's move to the story. So story-wise, it's fairly good. Basically, you play as a curator tasked with the retrieving of the grimoires, magical texts that were stolen, leaving the civilization in utter ruins. In order to avoid spoilers, I'm not really going to say any more than that. But in my opinion, the story is interesting enough. It doesn't really stand out in the way that it's told or the writing, and the cutscenes are kind of forgettable. They don't really do anything special, which is a problem with small budget games. That's generally the case when you're talking about a game of this budget. Now, as I mentioned before, the voice acting is actually really good. I think they do a good job of making it feel really genuine, and that's probably the best part of the story, is the way the voice actors kind of pull you in and make you feel like you're part of it. But to kind of summarize it, the story is not really what I believe will keep most people playing the game. Now let's get to the first major problem, the combat. If you follow my channel, you know that I am of the belief that combat is paramount, especially when it comes to a Souls-like game. If you get that wrong, you may as well not make the game at all. So when it comes to this game, I wouldn't say that it is completely broken, but I do think it will turn a lot of players off. The first problem is with the animations themselves. They're very slow, clunky, they lack smoothness, and it's really hard to get a beat on how to play the game well. You just kind of always feel like you're trying to learn the system and learn the timing, and it never really feels like you have it down and you can really make good headway with the game itself. One of the big problems I noticed is that when you go to activate your shield, there's like a delay. Not really a delay from the time you press the button, but if you're attacking or dodging and you press the button too soon after you do a attack or a dodge, then there's a delay from when the game will actually recognize that you press the button. So you will be attacking and then go to press the shield button, and then it just will never activate. And I feel like they should have made it to where the game registers that the button is being pressed, and then as soon as the opportunity arises and the animation ends, then the shield deploys. But they didn't do that, so you end up dying a lot just because you're trying to press the shield button, but you do it too fast. And it just makes the whole combat experience slow down and feel very jerky and hard to time. The enemy attacks are also kind of jumpy, so there's not a very smooth animation to where you can kind of get the timing of when the attack is coming. It's more of a, they start to move and then the attack just happens and then you end up getting smacked. I also think that they should have given you a flask that replenishes your mana, similar to Elden Ring. Now, they do have spells that you can unlock that do give you mana, but it's at the expense of your health. And so what tends to happen is you'll be going through an area and you'll get fairly far, but then you run out of mana completely. Now, you can replenish mana by doing basic attacks, and then through killing enemies, your mana replenishes. But in my opinion, they made the amount that you get back way too small. So it's hard to really make a good headway and make a ton of progress because you end up running out of mana and having to use basic spells, and oftentimes you just die. Now, one thing I think they did well is the dodge. The dodge does feel smooth, and they give you plenty of iframes so that when you do it, the timing's not super tight. So I do think that they did a pretty good job at that. Another good thing is the amount of spells and the progression. It's pretty deep. There are a ton of spells and a bunch of different elements that are categories of those spells. So there's quite a bit to unlock and progress through, and you really don't ever feel at any point in the game like you're spinning your wheels or like you don't have something to work towards. So overall, the combat is pretty janky, unfortunately, and it left me fairly disappointed. Now, if you made it this far in the video, you're probably enjoying yourself, so give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Finally, let's go over the general gameplay. The traversal and general movement are fairly smooth, and the world is pretty large and intertwined with itself, sort of like a open world version of Dark Souls 1. So I do commend them on that. I think that the level design or world design, they did an actual really good job at. And there's a bunch of exploration to do, a bunch of dungeons you can find, and each area feels very fresh and new. You don't ever really run into an area and it looks like the one you just left or the one you left a couple areas ago. Everything feels kind of handmade and unique. Now, there is very little guidance though, so it is super easy to get lost and just run around and have no idea where to go, and it might take you an hour or two just to figure out where you're supposed to be. For some people, that's a plus. If you are an old school Dark Souls fan, then that's probably a good thing to you. You enjoy getting lost in the world and having to find your own way around. But for some people, it will be a con, and you'll just get very frustrated and bored running around not knowing what to do. So if you can get past the combat, there is a ton to experience with this game, and for some players, it will be enjoyable. So that brings me to my conclusion. Here's what I think. If you are a general gamer that occasionally enjoys a Souls-like every now and then, I would say you should probably skip this one. I think that once you get into it and feel the clunky, kind of slow pace of the combat, you'll probably just get frustrated and it'll kind of ruin the rest of the game for you. However, if you are a hardcore Souls-like fan, I would say you should at least consider giving this one a try. Its unique blend of spellcasting and Souls-like combat, coupled with the large world and creative art, might be enough to atone for its sins. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the game in the comments, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.